Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good out there. So as promised, I want to talk about the ultimate charging station that I built. Honestly, this thing is fantastic. If you are a creator, photographer, videographer, you just have tools, or you just are, a home user with lots of gadgets and stuff, you know you have got tons of batteries. I mean, this in my lap here is all of the batteries and devices I use on a regular basis. You know, we've got big batteries, power banks, lights, more power banks, batteries, more batteries, more batteries, microphones, things like that. Honestly, this is the stuff that I use regularly. And of course, sod's law is that the moment that you need that camera to work for something that's happening, it won't be available and you'll end up having to use your phone or a cheaper option. I mean, phones are actually really good nowadays, but it tends to be one of the gadgets you can rely on being charged opposed to other ones. Unless, as I say, you build something like this, because this is both storage and also charging. The ironic thing here is I was supposed to film this video yesterday, but I didn't because none of my stuff was charged. The reason none of my stuff was charged is because I didn't have this up and running. And that's what I'm doing now. I want to show you it so I can get it all plugged in. As I've said, I know other people have made charging stations as such. I've seen, I think Casey Neistat even does a version where he sticks them to the walls next to plug sockets and stuff. And it's a fantastic option. But if you ever need to move it, it gets kind of annoying. And as everything pretty much runs on USB, there is a way of doing it that means that you can have all your stuff in one of these stations and just unplug a couple of plugs and take it all away. Because on the back of this is a mess, but it is there for a reason. So what I've got on the back of here is a couple of Anker multi-USB chargers. These are quite high wattage ones, and I suggest buying something that's relatively high wattage, because if it's, say, 10 watts and it's got 10 ports, to my understanding, that gives you 10 1-watt chargers, and 1 watt is slow as hell. So if you have higher top end of wattage, it means that each individual USB can get more power. They won't always need all that power, because once the thing's charged, it will stop sending most of the power to that port, obviously. But I think these are classed as intelligent in the sense they can just pick and choose what needs more power as it's requiring it, and then turn the other ones down. Whatever. Point is, they are USB charger blocks. And you just plug a figure of 8 lead, like a radio lead, into there, and that then powers all your USBs. And obviously the advantage to say with this is if you pull out those cables, this whole thing comes together. Yes, there's a lot of cables on the back of here that might look like spaghetti junction, and you might be like, why isn't that neater? You could do that as a perfect set line down, next to each other all the way down. You could use zip ties to interweave them to make a really nice. It's because things move around, and you also don't want a bunch of wiring. You don't want to put big bends in your wiring. So doing it this way, it looks messier if you look at it, but it's actually safer and better to have the cables freely out there. I've actually got self-adhesive clips on here. So if I need to change a cable, I just unplug the cable, or unclip the cable, shall we say. Most devices which use batteries, like GoPros and Canon cameras and all that sort of thing, you can go on Amazon and you can find multi-chargers. In fact, most of my multi-chargers have been gained by buying knockoff batteries. For instance, these MPF 960 batteries, which I run my newer lights off of, which I am lighting this with, if I'm not using the mains, and also I run my Canon camera off of these because I've got a little bit of kit which basically has a false battery on one end, a wire connected to it, and it runs off one of these. These are about the equivalent of, I think it was 4 or 5 original Canon batteries, and they cost a lot less. So you can get a lot more play out of something. But the point is, these also came with a charger dock, and many of the knockoff batteries, which I will say here are really good generally, make sure you look at your reviews, but buying original is just giving extra money to the company. Like GoPro, for instance, the amount they charge for their batteries is just ridiculous. I have heard of GoPro doing a thing where they change the software so you can't use unofficial batteries, and then it's difficult for the third-party makers to get around that. Someone told me that was wrong. Even though I've seen it come up on my screen, it said after an update you can no longer use third-party batteries, but I haven't got any third parties because I was warned of that, so I hadn't been able to test that. But Canon and all the other things, hell yeah, I use knockoff stuff. So in here, I have a little block charger, which is 2 slots for my GoPro, and this is a little box charger which I can put my Canon batteries in. These are all velcroed down inside here so they don't go anywhere, but you can take them out if you need to. Idea being that they don't move and you don't get confused about where they are, and they don't slide around and they don't knock stuff out. So in the top one, I've got my GoPro charger, my Canon charger, I've got an Olight charger and a couple of loose cables, because the Insta360s, for instance, I don't have a multi-charger for those, so I just plug it into the camera. I personally don't like charging batteries in the camera itself, because you are using the charging circuitry of the camera, and if that goes down, it could take out the rest of the camera with it, and that's something you don't really want to do. So if you can charge your battery separately, that is a way of possibly elongating the life of your gadgetry. So the next one down, I've got an 18650 charger, a charger for those FNP 960 batteries, and then in the bottom one, I've got some more digital SLR chargers. Now, unfortunately, these ones don't run off USB. They run off mains using figure of 8 leads. So in some cases, you do have to actually put mains power stuff in here, but because they unplug, and because I have a hole in the back here, it means that you can just pull them out, and then again, the whole thing can be moved at once with everything in there if you want. So for anything you can get a multi-charger for, stick it inside. If you've got any devices like these Rode Wireless Go 2s, these are the microphone systems I use, these have to be plugged in individually because they're built-in batteries. You can't put them into a multi-charger. They actually are multi-chargers now sold that are like third-party, but they're really expensive because they're specialised. I just need to make some sort of little stand so I can actually use the clip to clip these on. But up until now, all I do is just grab one of the cables, obviously, plug it in, and just leave it on the top. So I have batteries on charge, and I keep the extra ones on the shelves next to it. So not only is this where all of my batteries and all of my little bits of technology are going to go so it can be found easily, it also means that where it's sat in its own storage, it gets charged. And if you're like me and you put things back where they belong, it reminds you when you put it back on here, oh, plug it in and charge it. And then you don't ever have that scenario where you don't have the thing you need. So yeah, there's nothing particularly complicated about this, but as I say, I've seen plenty of people build charging stations. I've just not seen them build it into a piece of furniture like this that you can just pull the power cords out of and everything will come with it. It just makes it ultimately easy to move around if you move from place to place. I mean, even if you were out on location, having something like this would be fantastic because it means you can just plug it in wherever you're set up, and then all of your devices, whether you need them that day or not, will be there charged, ready to use if you need to. You could make this much fancier looking, I'm sure. You get some sort of roller unit or something like that, but this is just a cheap Amazon bookcase. But for me, this worked perfectly. And yeah, I want to get it plugged back in so all of my stuff is actually charged. Because as I say, this past week has been a case of like, oh, that's not charged, and I don't want to put this in until I've done the video. So there you go. As promised, the ultimate charging station. I fully suggest you build one if you have gadgetry because it will stop you having dead batteries when you need that device to work. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and if you want to help support this channel, please consider doing that through Patreon. I would massively appreciate it. It gets you into the Discord and all sorts of things like that, where you can just sit and chat with me. Last night, me and about 6 or 7 other people were just sat in chat, talking about stuff, watching videos together. It was a funny evening. Oh, there was some COD, but I'd rather forget playing COD because it... Oh. If you do build one, or you've already got something like this, I would be really interested to see your options, because, you know, we all come up with our own little ideas, and such simple little ideas are so helpful to us. So if you've done something like this, or you've got something like this, send me a picture through Instagram or Twitter, or, as I say, join Patreon, get on Discord. That's probably the best place, because I can sit and chat with you there. But yeah, let us know what you've done, if you've got any ideas and stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.